Welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Ludke.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bridge the Gap. I got one that I've been so excited for a while now. We got someone that I think is on the verge of blowing up. He's a keynote speaker, author of 2 books, Empty Your Backpack, and then Be Someone's Taco. He's the founder of Elite Speaker Coaching. We've got Sam Demma in the house. Sam, how are you today?
Dude, such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm feeling great.
Dude, are you in your new studio?
This is actually a little bit of a home office setup.
Okay.
But the new studio is exciting. I leave around 5 p.m.
I saw you just posted it today on Instagram. It looks super cool. I'm super excited for what that's going to do for you. Like I said, I think you're on the verge of blowing up. Like, I think if you were to do a regular podcast, I think you would just be huge. I think you have a message that really people need to hear, and I think people really want to hear.
Man, I am humbled by hearing that, and I appreciate it. I hope I can continue having opportunities to share the message, and if it connects with people, that's a bonus. But I feel like it's a part of my heart and what I want to share with the world, so I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, that's what I think. People launch podcasts all the time, and people say we don't need more podcasts, and I buck against that because we do. We just need better. We need the different kinds of podcasts. We need the right kinds. Like there was never a point where we said we don't need more TV shows or new movies or new music. We just needed something different and something that was authentic. And you have such an authenticness. For those you don't know Sam, I found Sam on my YouTube feed in his shorts maybe a couple months ago, and instantly I was like, oh, this guy is exactly what I've been preaching for a lot. You talk about kindness, you talk about positivity, you have a couple core statements, empty your backpack. We'll get into all that. I think you're just great. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit of like your background, where you came from, and your whole thing is like kindness, and what role did kindness play in like your personal journey and kind of your success?
Yeah, man. Growing up, half Italian, half Greek, I came from a pretty large family. There was lots of love, which shaped the way I experience life and the way I show up. I had a professional aspiration to play soccer as a young kid, carried that dream for practically my entire childhood till I was 17. I lived in Italy at one point with a pro club that thought that I was on the verge of becoming a professional. They were going to sign me. Didn't really work out. Came back, dedicated my life to sports and soccer. By the age of 17, I was playing on one of the most competitive teams in the country, in Canada here. Ended up having 3 major knee injuries, 2 surgeries, lost the full ride scholarship, and felt like my entire life was derailed. Didn't know what I wanted to do, was so unclear about the future, but was very lucky that not only did I have the supportive family, but I had a teacher who just never gave up on me as a person and helped me shift my entire trajectory. His name was Mr. Loudfoot, and I'm sure we'll talk about him at some point. And he taught a lesson in class that really shifted my entire focus from figuring out how I could become the best athlete to figuring out how I could serve others and use my gifts to help. So I would say kindness has played a massive role in my life, not only because it's what I saw my parents, grandparents, and a lot of mentors around me exhibiting in their day-to-day lives, but there's been moments where a small act of kindness has changed how I feel in my own heart. I was in Kenya last summer, and we were doing these school visits, and we stopped at one school, Cheptenye High School, and we were going to tour the campus. But when we parked the car, I noticed all the students at the school were playing soccer on a soccer field. And I'm like, Mr. Principal, I know we're supposed to tour your campus, but can I please actually play soccer with the kids? And he was like, yeah, of course. And so I ran over and, took my shoes off, and I'm on the field, 90 minutes running up and down, sweating like crazy. All the students never have visitors in this small little town that want to play soccer with them. So the whole sideline was filled with people. And long story short, the game ends. I had a blast, and a young man runs over and he's like, Sam, that was amazing. Soccer is my whole life. It's everything to me, but I can't afford shoes. Can you please get me a pair of soccer cleats? And I was like, dude, 100%. Like, tell me the size, tell me the brand, and my team and I will like get to a store and we'll get them to you. And we're in the car and I'm driving back and I'm telling the team, and Zion and Brian and Habimana and Titus were like, why don't we try and get cleats for the whole team? And so we ended up doing a GoFundMe campaign and filmed a video for it while we were in Kenya. And we stayed up till 4 a.m.
Wow.
On Instagram Live doing 25 push-ups for $50 donations. And overnight raised a ton of funds. And we ended up getting the whole team shoes and jerseys and balls. And anyway, I share that with you because it brought me so much joy and fulfillment. And I think the role kindness has played in my personal journey and success is reminding me what actually matters. And it's not the personal achievements and the amount of stages I've spoken on. It's the moments where I've been able to help somebody that I didn't know, like a complete stranger, because of something I was able to do.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, like redefining what success looks like, right? Because I think a lot of people's success is the job or the title or the promotion, or in this day and age, the amount of subscribers, the views, the clicks, the engagement rate, the virality of things. And really success, I think sounds like for you, and I think I kind of echo that, is success is kind of the legacy you leave and the impact you leave on people. Because at the end of the day, 30 years from now, no one's going to remember that live stream. No one's going to remember the video. They're going to remember the impact that you had on their life. And they may go, man, this guy really impacted me because he got me cleats and a jersey, or I saw this video and it changed what I thought. They're not going to go, man, I remember this YouTube video. I remember seeing him and he made this impact. And I think that's huge. One of you have a couple key phrases. One of them is small, consistent actions. Talk about where you learned that from and how that kind of played an impact on you in your life.
That was Mr. Loudfoot, my world issues teacher. When going through this transition with the soccer injuries, he was teaching about figures in history who had massively changed the world and tried to prove to us that the changes they made were the result of thousands of small, consistent actions. His idea and challenge to us was to go in the community, take a small, consistent action and see what would happen. I started picking up garbage, walking home from high school, and a buddy saw me and we started doing it together. And we ended up continuing it for 5 or 6 years, filled tons of bags of trash. And it actually is what got me doing more work with young people and in schools, because we needed volunteers. So I started speaking and doing these promotional talks. And then a principal was like, dude, they enjoyed it. Can you please come back and do something for 30 minutes? And that was the first time I actually wrote a formal talk or speech and went and delivered it. That idea of small, consistent actions is actually now tattooed on my forearm. You can see SCA
nice.
beside my watch. And for me, it's a reminder that when things get overwhelming, it's not about biting half of the meal at once, taking out a big chunk. It's about a nibble. What's the next nibble? What's the smallest step I could take to move what we're doing 1% further along? And if you do that every day over a long period of time, big changes start happening. So that's really the origins of small, consistent actions and how I think about it today.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of thinking about things. I think we always do see, whatever your goal is, and a lot of people have lofty goals, and they're just like, well, how do I get there? It's like, no, it's not how you get there. How do you get like one step closer to that? It's like, what's the next step? What's the next iteration? Like, what's the next thing you can do that's small and consistently doing? I talk with people about YouTube and thumbnails. It's like, hey, just get a little bit better. Like, make your next thumbnail 1% better. Just be 1% better every day. And then over the course of the year, you're a million times better. It's just the way it works. And I love that small, consistent action, because I think your story of picking up trash, I've heard your story multiple times of like, the first day was just you, and then it was like you and your friend and your friends, your moms. and then it's slowly like built. And I think that's huge. And you are young, right? You're in your 20s.
Yeah, 25.
And you really became a keynote speaker and kind of found this passion pretty early on. And so I think that's rare for someone to find kind of their life's mission that early and have success doing that. And I think there's this sense of you live with kindness and you live with compassion. How do you do that in a world where there's often we value the competition and we can value competition over connection. We value, status over, peace, I guess, on some level.
I think the first most important thing is non-judgment for how other people are choosing to live.
Yeah.
So recognizing that the way I live my life might not be the same way that somebody else chooses to live theirs, and that is okay. Everyone is on their own unique journey. For me, I think I've realized that the games that people play in life, they're big enough for all players to win, whatever winning looks like for each individual person. My definition of success today is doing work I love with people I love for a long period of time. No one, like I don't need anybody else's opportunities for that reality to become true for me. And so I think it's about choosing a very clear definition of success and finding ways to live it out. And I found that if you do collaborate, instead of trying to compete, the games become more fun, and also the game expands in terms of what's possible for everybody. And so, yeah, I really think that I've held that as a mindset my entire life. And when I've come across people that don't share that belief, I don't try to forcefully change them. I just continue on my way and find the people that have a similar mindset.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, defining success and what success looks like for you, and whatever your version of success is, and you can hit that or strive towards that, is going to be different for every person.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about kindness. You are big on kindness. You have so many stories, and you put out a ton of great clips on Instagram and YouTube of your kindness and your compassion. How do you encourage kindness in this environment where that's really not the norm? Like, when you're meeting someone, they're like, "Hey, Sam, why were you nice to that person?" What do you say? Like, how do you explain that and encourage that? Because that's not the norm in today's society, I find.
Yeah, it is tough. There was a situation when I started the garbage initiative where a friend's father asked my friend, what's his ulterior motive? What's the ulterior motive? Yeah. Why is he doing that? What is he trying to get?
Yep.
I tell a story of a gentleman named Ted that I met on a sidewalk that was trying to get home to deliver bread to his sister's house. And I was in the middle of a run, and I stopped to see if he was okay because this old man was waving me down. And when I found out he was trying to get to his sister's house, we found the address and punched it in, and it was a very long walk, like 40 minutes, 35 minutes, and the Uber was like a couple of minutes. And I was in a position to spend a few dollars to get him an Uber home, and he teared up and he got in the car and waved by like he was my grandfather, which is really weird. And I haven't felt more significant in my entire life than in this simple moment helping a stranger on the sidewalk. And I have these list of goals that I make every single year. And sometimes I literally don't feel like I'm enough as a human unless I check off these goals. But I can give myself that experience every day if I listen to my heart when I walk past someone on the street who I know needs help, and I choose not to ignore it. And so when someone's like, why are you being kind to people? I mean, maybe it sounds selfish, but I tell other people, you don't understand. Like, this gives me a feeling of fulfillment and significance more than anything I could possibly do with my life. And it also benefits the other party, the person who's on the receiving end. And some people understand it, and I think some people might never, but I'm hoping that more people will see it from that perspective in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of, something I always tell people, like, you treat someone the same, whether they are the CEO or the janitor, and that's a popular saying, but I always say, like, don't go into a situation going, what can I get out of this? It's what can I give into this? And, I do a lot of stuff in the fantasy football space, and there's an expo every year. And last year I was with my friends. I was like, hey, there's this guy sitting over the bleachers. He's like, who's he? And I was like, I don't know. I'll go find out. And he was like, I'll go talk to this other guy who's like, a known name. And I went over to talk to this guy, and now he's like one of my best friends. I talk to him all the time. Like, we just hit up a conversation, walked over and said, hey, I'm Dustin. He's like, hey, I'm Johnny. We just talked to him, and I've been able to like help him and his buddy get out their podcast go. And it's just like, you never know who someone is or who they could be. And I think that's the huge thing, because I think everybody looks like, who are they now and what can they provide for me? But it's like, you don't know who they could be down the road. Like 5 years from now, that person that you helped get bread to his sister's house couldn't end up being someone who can open a door for you, who can provide that kindness back, or can provide kindness for someone else, right? Imagine, Mr. Beast does a lot of stuff, philanthropy stuff. Imagine you were the guy that like helped Mr. Beast in middle school, and you're like, man, I helped this, and he didn't help me back, but he's helping millions of other people. And I think that's what we got to get into, is it's not what I get out of it, it's what I give into it, and what that opens up down the road for other people.
Yeah, and I think having zero expectations
Yep.
on like how it's supposed to look, or not creating any rules on who you choose to give
Yes.
to and who you choose not to. Like there was a moment in Kenya where I felt selfish and was taught a very valuable lesson. We were driving in downtown Nairobi. They call it CBD, which is the Central Business District. And Kamata was our local connection, who was our driver. And imagine the busiest your city's ever been when there's like a parade going on. And there's also hundreds of people walking in front of your car, in and out of all the cars nonstop. So your windows are rolled up so people don't reach in. And every couple of minutes, someone was knocking on the driver window asking for money. And if they persistently asked, Kamata would roll down his window and give them some change. There was people that visibly looked like they needed the support. And then there was an individual who walked up toward the end of our drive who was dressed in what looked like a freshly pressed tuxedo, like a suit, and he had a briefcase and polished shoes, and he knocked on the window 3 times, and Kamata gave him money, and he rolled the window back up, and I turned to him and I was like, dude, why did you give that person change that it didn't seem like they needed it? There's so many people that are struggling. And he was like, if you give because someone deserves it, that's called a payment.
Yeah.
But if you give because you feel it in your heart, that's called a gift. And I think it's really important that the kindness is unconditional, and that there is no expectation on getting anything from it. But the natural byproduct is going to be cool experiences. Like you don't eat food so you can poop, but it happens. It's the same thing with being a good human being. And I think that's one of the cool little surprises of living with kindness.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like not having any expectations on kindness, right? And just going, hey, I'm going to give because there's no expectation, there's no caveats, there's no, set reasons. Like I'm just going to give because I want to be generous, and not expecting, well, this person doesn't need it, or this person doesn't deserve it. I think that's huge, because I think a lot of people go into, that's why I don't like networking. I hate the concept of networking, because networking is all about like, what can you give me and what can I give you? It's like, no, like, what can I just do to help? Like, I don't need to. Can I just help you? And for no reason, like, you don't need ulterior motives, and that's just such a foreign concept. Let me ask you this question. If kindness were a subject in school, what would be the first lesson you teach? If you were like, Professor Sam, at the local university, and it's kindness 101, it's a subject we're going to teach in school, or maybe it's taught in junior high or high school, what would be your first lesson?
Man, I just had a conversation literally last week with 4 gentlemen on a Zoom call that are organizing an event August 2nd. It's a free event to attend in Abbotsford, British Columbia. And there's going to be a large group gathering together in an effort to create more oneness in a world that's filled with division. Nice. And awesome. It's not connected to one specific ideology, but there's lots of different religious parties, like the senior leaders of a bunch of them coming together, and government officials. It's going to be such a cool gathering. And I share this because one of the gentlemen said something that stuck with me. He said, where there is no conflict within, there is no conflict outside.
Wow.
And so he said, you have to make sure that you're at peace if you're going to try and bring peace to others. You have to make sure you're being kind to yourself if you're going to try and give kindness to others. And so the first lesson I would teach or advocate for in schools, if kindness was taught, was the importance of being kind to ourselves. I think that's really the foundation.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think you're right. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to have inner peace if you want to give it up, because whatever you have inside is going to come out of you, right? If you have self-anger and self-hate, that's going to come out of you. But if you live a life where you have self-kindness and self-care and self-peace, that's just going to naturally spill out of you. And I think that's something I see in you. That's why I was like, instantly when I saw you, I was like, man, this guy is so genuinely kind and peaceful and compassionate. Like it flows out of you, whether you wanted to or not. Like I watched you on other podcasts. I've watched everything you've ever been on to prepare for this. And it's just natural for you. And I've seen other people who are keynote speakers, do TED Talks, and it's like, man, it just doesn't seem authentic, because it's just, they're putting on a show and they're putting on a brave face and they're faking it. And it's when it's real inside you, it does just pour out of you. And I think that's huge, because you can fake it. There's things you can fake. You can pretend, you can be generous and give money, but if you're not generous with yourself, it's never true generosity. It's just an act. It's just a show at that point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I try my best to remind myself of that every single day. And again, I go back to like, what is my heart telling me? Like when I walk past the person who's in need, what do I feel in my heart? And is it my head that says, nah, you don't have time, but my heart's hurting because deep down I know like that's my family too. You know,
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend recently, and I think the idea of having a family is phenomenal, and it'll never change because we have our families, but it creates this divisional box of like, this
Yeah.
is my family, and everyone outside of it are strangers. And I think if it's ever possible to get to a place where we treat other people the same way we do treat our close friends or
Yeah.
family members, that would be a really beautiful world to live in.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be a huge world, beautiful world to live in. Let's talk about, we talk about self-care. How do you handle criticism, negativity, failure, and how do you deal with those things when those things happen? Like, obviously, we're not always successful. There's going to be times where don't meet goals, don't meet expectations. You might
Yeah.
fail at something. How do you deal with those in the terms of like being kind to yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it took me a really long time to realize that my self-worth wasn't attached to my talents, my achievements, or accomplishments.
Yeah.
And that for me was learned through athletics, because if Sam had a good soccer game, he was praised heavily. If Sam had a bad soccer game, he was asked questions to improve. and that's actually a positive experience, because sometimes you get yelled at, but I was asked to reflect, which helped me improve. But I lost the ability to play soccer and then felt like a complete failure. And no one was shouting in my face saying you're a failure, but I felt like I had spent 12 years of my life and things just didn't work out. Um, and then I stumbled upon a guy named Jim Rohn, who's become like a massive inspiration for me now. And his lectures are on YouTube. He's passed away. I really wish I could have met him. But he said the value of a goal is not accomplishing it. The value of the goal is the person you become in the process.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
great.
yeah, because reaching for a big goal forces you to change who you are. So I
Yeah.
tell my friends, like, I want to do stadium tours. We're going to fill
Mm.
stadiums with 20 to 40,000 people, and it's going to be a half comedy, half motivational experience. There's going to be a lineup of artists, not just myself. And I then tell people whether it happens now or in 20 years or never happens is irrelevant, because reaching for it is changing the way I show up. It's changing how I spend my time. It's changing my habits. It's changing my attitude. It's changing my philosophy on life. And I think in moments where things aren't working out or there's negativity or criticism, I remind myself that it's not about the outcome, and it's about the person I'm becoming. And the challenges and negativity and criticism are forcing me to grow as an individual. So I see it as an accomplishment, just as I would see an actual success as an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think this goes to like I think one of your probably your biggest point is emptying your backpack.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great concept. It's something you tour schools with. You have this massive giant backpack. It's like you can fit like 3 of you in there, it seems. Talked about emptying the backpack and what that means for you.
Yeah. I had a tough time during the pandemic, and noticed that young people are also really struggling. Typically, they'd have an outlet to build their social skills in school, talking to students and becoming better communicators, but they had a long stretch of time where they were stuck at home. So I started doing these weekly Instagram live calls. And you've likely heard the story before, but I had a student who was really struggling with his mental health, joined one of the Instagram live calls and told me that his biggest goal in life was to have 50,000 followers on social media. And I think it's so important that when a young person tells us an aspiration, we don't criticize, but instead we ask questions if we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just said, hey, man, cool. Why? And he said, well, if I had 50,000 followers, kids would stop bullying me. Went completely silent, turned off the camera on his phone. Fortunately, there was another 30, 40 people watching the call live. They started filling the comments with the most positive stuff. Call finishes. He finally turned his camera back on. We connected him with guidance counselors, sent him merchandise in the mail. But I just couldn't stop thinking about the interaction after the whole thing ended. And at the time, I was writing an album of spoken word poetry because I was very inspired by rap music. And it was called Dear High School Me. I never finished it because after the first poem, it took my life down a totally different path. But that interaction inspired me to write a poem about letting go of negative thoughts and letting go of the opinions of others if they're not serving you. And because I was working with so many students at the time, I reflected on what students carry. If they're not letting go, they're carrying it, and they all carry backpacks. And so I titled the poem "Empty Your Backpack," and the metaphor was that the most important thing we can do is let go of those negative thoughts and opinions, whether they're self-imposed or borrowed from some other person. And I turned the poem into an animated video on YouTube. If you search "Empty Your Backpack," you could find it. And then we wrote a book about the same concept. And then we actually got this giant backpack that you referenced and brought it into schools and did presentations about the concept. And so I think to answer this question and bring it full circle, the first step in emptying your backpack is writing the things down, like having awareness on some of the stories you're telling yourself, because it's really hard to catch ourselves in a loop unless we're sitting down to reflect on it and actually figure out where did some of these beliefs even come from in the first place. And then after you write them down, it's about talking to somebody who can help you rewrite some of them by reminding you who you truly are. And for me, that was Kate, or Mr. Loudfoot or my parents. But if you don't have one of those people in your life at this current moment, reaching out to some helpline or someone you can unpack the backpack with, I think is so important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you brought up a good thing. It was like asking the question of why. When someone gives you a goal and aspiration, it's not just, okay, cool. It's, hey, why do you want that? Right. And then same thing with these assumptions is like, why do I feel this way? And I think there's something super powerful about asking why, but also what you said is like writing it down. There's power when you say it and there's power when you write it because it becomes tangible. Because I think a lot of times we have these thoughts and emotions and conceptions about our life, and they're very like, they're not concrete. They're this amorphous blob. It's like, I feel not valued. And you're like, well, you're like, what areas? You're like, I don't know. But once you start writing it down, that forces you to kind of drill down on that, which is huge. Let's talk about this backpack. How heavy is that thing? Like, I know you fill it with probably light stuff, but I imagine just on its own, that fabric's got to be pretty heavy.
I do have back pain now.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
We've done some damage. It's heavier than Chick-fil-A and lighter than a Lamborghini.
Okay.
So it actually weighs, I would say, 9 to 10 pounds once it's full.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy though. I mean,
yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, you can go check it out. Find Sam Dema on YouTube. It's as tall as you, and it's probably double as wide as you. How many people can you fit in there? Have you tried? Have you and your friends all tried to fit in there?
So it depends how big the people are. But you can fit average size humans, at least 2 people in there.
At least. I would think you'd be able to squeeze 3 of you guys in there. Maybe you guys, that should be a cool photo. You guys just squeeze there, you and your buddies in there, get in there, get in the backpack. Let's talk about kindness and social change. And I want to go first. I want to go back to this stadium tour. You do that, you got a ticket sold. I'll buy one. I'll come see you. I know you're in Camden in Wisconsin. We're not that far off. Let's talk about comedy. You're taking comedy classes on Tuesday nights.
Yeah. So
that's why this is on Wednesday. Normally we record on Tuesday, but you do comedy classes. Is that where that came from? You're like, hey, I want to be better at comedy. And is that why you started taking classes?
Well, I set the goal first, like the vision first. And then comedy has been a tool that I've used on stage throughout my entire career. And I feel that it does ooze out of me in some natural ways, but I also want to work on it and improve it. And the goal of filling a stadium requires me to be just as entertaining as I am inspiring and educational. And I understand there's a gap between where I am now and the level of skill I would need to bring that vision to life. And so for me, it's a no-brainer. If I said that that's what I want to do, I should probably start working on the skills. And yeah, so I'm in my first ever 6-week comedy class.
Nice.
And I'm loving it so far. It's been a good learning experience.
So you're gonna do like an open mic night? Is that the plan? Are you gonna do something?
Yeah. The end of the 6-week program, you do a 5-minute stand-up set, and everyone gets to watch. It's gonna be awesome.
Wow. How are you feeling about that? Are you semi-confident on a scale of 1 to 10? How confident are you about that set?
Okay, so here's the interesting fact. 2 of the 7 classes I'm missing because of pre-booked engagements, and one of which is the final class, which is the stand-up set. And unfortunately, this is the quietest time of the year for me. So if I try and do this class mid-year, I'm going to miss more of the classes. So I told the staff and they said, look, as long as you learn the material and you film a 5-minute stand-up set, we can pass you. So by any means necessary, we're doing whatever it takes.
Dude, that's going to be so much fun. I've done an open mic night once for a comedy site, and it was, I think I'm fairly funny and entertaining, but man, I felt so insecure. And I'm a good public speaker. Like, I went to school for preaching and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, I'm out of my element. And, I play fantasy football, and we've always talked about, like, loser punishment for the last place team. And one that I always float out there is that's what they got to do. They got to go do a 5-minute open mic night set as their loser punishment. And everybody's like, never, ever. And I'm like, come on, it's not that hard.
That's awesome.
Let's talk about you said you were on a call and how kindness can be a catalyst for social change. How do you think that works? What does that look like? You said you're just on a call with some 4 people. What does kindness as a mechanism for social change look like?
I mean, I think there's a few ways you could think about this question. The first is that if you show somebody kindness that's not expecting it, or you show somebody kindness that society would tell you doesn't deserve it because of the way they've treated you in the past or what they've done, I think it has the strongest potential to soften another person's heart and change the way they act in the world, change the way they think about showing up for others. And I've seen that firsthand from experiences with family members, like external families, when we've had arguments or challenges. And maybe you have every reason in the world to not open your arms again, but you do. And it breaks them down as much as it breaks you down. And we all recognize that we're better together. So yeah, I think that's one way that kindness really creates social change.
Yeah. And let's talk about your last point. You have, small, consistent actions. You have empty your backpack. The one I really loved was be someone's taco. And I'll recap the story for the listeners. Is you had a friend and you called him and he was still in bed at, 2:00 in the afternoon, and you ordered him tacos, just for lunch, just as like a way of showing kindness, because you're like, man, he's probably not having a great day. And it just was so much more of an impact. So talk about what that means to be someone's taco, because you have a kid's book, you have tacos in your new studio, stuffies, it's kind of a big deal. And I think it's a really great story and a great concept. So kind of explain that a little more to the people.
Yeah, for anyone watching, this is the actual little image that goes along with the story.
Yes.
And it was gifted by my friend Andrew. So this statement, this catchphrase, even the image of the taco, was the creation of him and his wife, Emily, who gifted it to me after the experience happened. Being someone's taco is a reminder to people to be whatever someone needs in that moment. So as a student, if someone needs you to be a shoulder to lean on because they're struggling in class, be the shoulder. If someone's moving and they need someone to help pack boxes, be a box packer. If someone needs you to listen, just be an ear. So being someone's taco is really about recognizing a need and then doing whatever it takes to fill it if you're in a position to do so. And we took the real life experience with my friend Andrew and his wife, and we turned it into a children's friendly story or kids picture book to try and share that idea and message with young people, in the hope that it'll change the way they show up as they grow and age as well.
Yeah, I think it's great because it's also, for me, it's being something simple. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be someone's bank account. You don't have to be someone's rock. You just have to get them tacos. Like, it's just those small, consistent actions, right? A small action has massive impact. I've talked to people, and I talked to one of my friends, JC, and he said to me this. He goes, your words could be the words that end someone's life or save someone's life, because you don't know what they're going through. And it takes literally nothing to be nice and be kind. And you just never know what the impact that has, because you don't know what they're going through, right? Walking, smiling and saying hi to someone on the street or holding the door for someone, you never know what that does, because you never know what state they're in. Whereas if you're mean to them, you don't know what state they're in either. And you don't want to be the downfall. You just want to do something simple. Those small, consistent actions, those simple actions, buying someone tacos can really have a massive impact that goes beyond just the moment, right? And I think that's the big thing, is people are going, wow, if I do this, what's the internal impact? It's like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter what the impact is. It's you helped, and whether you have a massive impact or a small impact, it doesn't matter. You had an impact. And I think all impact is equal, because, we talk about this in my group of circles. It's not equal giving, right? It's not like, hey, I wish I could donate $7,000 to this cause. It's like, maybe I can only donate 10. It's not equal giving, it's equal sacrifice. And what I can sacrifice is what I can sacrifice, and what you can sacrifice might be completely different, but the impact is the same, because impact is impact. And I think that's huge.
You just mentioned the other half of the backpack metaphor analogy, and it's the idea that not only do we have a backpack, but so does everybody else. Yep. And when I speak, I often remind everyone, people don't walk around with a shirt that says, hey, I just got divorced.
Yeah.
You know, like no one walks around telling everybody what they're going through. And I use that as the example intentionally, because I once had a Zoom call with a lady who was thinking about, you know, bringing me to speak to their school district. And we ended the call, and she got very emotional when I was telling her some of the stories and some of the messaging. And a week later sent me an email telling me that she had just had a conversation with her significant other about their divorce right before we hopped on the call, and that she needed our conversation more than she realized, and was so grateful that we met. And I'm thinking, I had no idea. Like I had absolutely no clue. And if we don't know what someone else is going through, it's better to just by default be a good human being, in the attempt that it's either going to help them feel better in their negative situation right now, or add on to their already amazing experience.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. If someone's having an amazing day, you smiling and holding the door isn't going to ruin that. You're just going to add on to it.
Yeah.
Right. Because we've all had those days where, like, I had a good day, but then I was like, oh man, all these, like, these 10 things all happened today. It was amazing. It's like, well, cool. Someone was one of those 10, like maybe it was 9 things and someone was a 10th thing, or someone was the 8th thing. And that's huge, because we don't know. And you just never know. And I think a lot of times we're put in situations that we just don't know the impact we have. And so, right, it goes back to this mindset of like living out kindness and making that an action, and making that a part of who you are, so it flows out of you naturally. And I get it, it's not the natural thing for most people. Like, kindness is, some people want to do, but it's just hard for them to do it. So I think it's right. It's those small, consistent actions that's building that habit of how do you build a habit of being kind, right? And start small, and right, setting some goals. I think if you're listening and you don't know how to, like, what that looks like, just set a goal. Do one kind act a day. Like, be intentional about it, and then eventually that becomes just a habit of who you are. Yeah. I think that's huge. Let me ask you this question. What's your taco order? You're going out to eat. Well, you can build your perfect taco. What is it?
I'm lactose intolerant, which is crazy because I'm Italian and Greek. So my grandparents got to adjust all their homemade.
How do you do that?
For me.
Oh, and you're Canada with poutine? Like, what are you eating up there?
I know. So I'd get a soft shell taco with ground beef, tomatoes, lettuce, salsa, and I'd probably get like 4 to 6 of them.
Okay. Spicy, not spicy?
Oh, can't do spice. I say like mild.
Mild. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, avocado too.
I'm a soft shell taco. I like a nice beef. I believe ground beef is easy, but I love it, like a nice, like, carne asada steak. You know, throw that in there. Some sort of like flank steak is where it's at. I don't like fish. I can't do the fish tacos. That's like, you know, my wife loves that anytime we travel. But yeah, I'm a big beef guy. We eat it. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin. We eat a ton of beef and cheese. So
yeah, you guys got Burnett. You guys got Burnett's Dairy, right?
Burnett, yeah, we got. I mean, we just had, and it's just. I was telling someone, who's like, I'm gonna come visit you in Wisconsin. I was like, cool. Do you like cheese? Like, yep. I was like, we got a whole cheese store. That's all we got. Like, it's just beef and cheese. That's all we got.
I've been to Turtle Lake, Wisconsin.
Okay,
it's nice. A very small spot. But yeah, the first thing I was gifted was cheese curds, and they squeaked.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It freaks me out. I can't get behind it. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I moved out here 13 years ago. I can't get behind squeaky food.
Cheese, yeah.
It just freaks me out. Now, a deep fried cheese curd is phenomenal. It's better than a mozzarella stick. So, but yeah, I can't get behind squeaky cheese curds. It's just something about it that just, my food shouldn't make that kind of noise. Like,
yeah.
Like, it feels like it's alive. I'm like, nah, I can't do it. That's funny. Sam, before we get out of here, what's the one thing, someone comes to hear as you speak, what's the one thing you hope they walk away from a Sam Dema talk with?
Just giving people permission to be human again. I think we know deep in our hearts when we're supposed to do the act of kindness. Like, I've never walked past a person on the side of the road who needed help and not had a little voice in my heart that's like, dude, help the person. You can. Yeah. But I use my brain and convince myself I'm busy or I have other things to do.
Or it's dangerous or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, just be a human. Like, be a human again. We're all connected. Look out for each other. Take the extra moment to ask the waiter's name at the restaurant because it's going to bring a smile on their face. or give the genuine compliment when you think about it, but you're too shy to say it because you think it's going to create an awkward experience. Just listen to that little voice in your heart, and it's okay to be human.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, listen to that small voice is huge, because I really think that people are worried that it's going to be awkward. It's, oh, I'm too busy. I don't know. What if something goes bad? It's like, man, I rarely find it when I'm like, hey, let me take this step of kindness and step of faith out, that it also goes like horrible. It usually ends up in a really cool experience. I say all the time to people, like, you don't know because you don't ask.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know, like, you're missing out on opportunities because you simply didn't ask. Because at the end of the day, worst they can say is no. I've got to go to some really cool events just because I'm like, hey, do you guys have availability for like media? And they're like, yep. I'm like, cool. And people are like, how'd you go? And I'm like, I asked. And they're like, that's it. I'm like, yeah. They said yes. Like, that's it. Right. I reached out to you and was like, hey, would you want to come on my podcast? And you were like, yep. And I was like, cool. And someone's like, how'd you get him? I was like, I asked. I just reached out. Worst you could have said is no. And I'm, okay, like, what does that lose for me? That 5 minutes took me an email to send out. Like, it doesn't hurt, but now I got to have this cool opportunity to talk to you. So tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on, anything you want to plug. Let them know where they can find you, and how maybe they could book you if they're a teacher or a principal and they want to book you for their school, how they can do that.
Well, I did hear on another podcast that 90% of people who tune into shows aren't subscribed. So if you're not already subscribed to Dustin's show, please make sure you do that now. If you want to connect with me, it's just my name across any platform. If you go on Google and search Sam Dema, you'll find everything. If there's a conference event planner or an educator or superintendent listening to this that wants to book something for their staff or their school district, just my website, samdema.com, would be the best way to reach out.
Yeah, you got a pretty easy link to get on there, and you guys are super responsive. I mean, I sent the request, and I got something back like the next day. So I definitely think it's worth it. I'm going to send this to all my teacher friends, be like, hey, give this to your principal, book this guy. We'll get you in the States a little more over here, get you out of Canada, get you into the States in some warmer weather, hopefully.
As long as there's no squeaky cheese, I'm there.
Hey, man, I agree. We'll keep you away from the squeaky cheese. Sam, thank you so much for coming in. Everyone, thanks for listening and tuning in. Drop your questions in the chat if you're listening to this after the fact. I'll get on. Maybe I could forward them to Sam if you guys got questions about kindness. Hope you'd enjoyed this special edition of Bridge the Gap. Normally we're on Tuesdays. This is a special Wednesday edition. Just fit mine and Sam's schedule. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time.